All right, let me click this. And I always like to take a moment because it truly works for me when I look at the screen and I look around and I just, without any defenses, just an open mind and without any interpretation at all. And I see, I see what the Holy Instant presents. It gives me such joy that it automatically sort of resets any kinds of feeling rushed or incomplete, or I haven't done everything I'm supposed to do. And it just like it seems in that moment that we're here together, it seems that the dream is over. That for this is just how it happens for me, that it's over, that the hallucination that we have all colluded in, because the world is a dream, and Jesus says, but really, do you believe it? Do you believe it? Because you're not going to escape as long as you keep acting as if it's real, as long as you keep responding to it as if it has power. Tony's wonderful talk last night about the restoration of power to ourselves. And it's simply the realization that we do this to ourselves. That's the realization that we are doing this to ourselves. This world of sickness, pain, suffering, death is a dream. And where are dreams? But in a mind that's asleep. So as long as we keep believing in it and colluding with one another in it, as if it's real, and we all do it, we all do it. But the point that I'm making here is to become aware, A, that we're doing it, and B, that we have a decision to make as to whether we want to continue colluding in it, believing in it, reinforcing it, or whether we want to take the next step. I'm doing this to myself, and the next step, which is to my way of thinking, also essential is to say, okay, I'm doing this. The suffering I'm feeling, the pain I'm feeling, the worry I'm feeling, the fear I'm feeling, the guilt I'm feeling. I'm doing this to myself. Only now it appears to be outside me, sin, guilt, and fear, and now it's all outside of me. But I still keep seeing and dreaming sin, guilt, and fear. It's the source of the dream, but that's why the dream is so hideous and painful and horrific and murderous and hateful. But to say, I'm doing this And then the next question is, what for? What for? What am I doing it for? What is its purpose? Jesus says, you got to ask that of absolutely everything. At least according to him. And you know, if we have a teacher that has promised to save us from pain and suffering and ultimately death, we would be wise to follow what he says instead of ignore what he says. We would be, you know, it would be an intelligent thing to do, not because Jesus is saying, hurry up, come on, you got to get this over with, you've got to do this. It's not about hurry. It's, he says this, which we're really talking bottom line here, we're talking the resurrection of the mind from the ego thought system of sin, guilt, and fear that is now protecting that sin, guilt, and fear through the making of a world and projecting all the guilt outside and seeing it out there. Everybody with me on that? Is there anybody that's, you know, maybe, I just arrived here about a week ago and I don't know what you're talking about? Because that could very well happen and has happened sometimes. So, you know, the world we see is, we may as well say it, could say it this way, is a defense against ever waking up from the dream. It's guaranteed that we can continue sleeping as long as we believe in it and we collude in it. So I was thinking about the one thing that Ken says could be considered a sin in A Course in Miracles is to make the error real. To make the error real. To make the error, which is the world we see, and make it real. And how do we do that? We do that by reacting to it instead of looking through the eyes of forgiveness with Jesus or with the Holy Spirit. Neither one of them believes it. So if we join with them, either one, Holy Spirit, Jesus, and show me another way. He said in I forget a lesson we just did recently, but you need to learn how to see because you don't know how to see. You see with your eyes, and I'm going to show you how to see with the mind of spirit. And ears don't hear. So, you know, forget all the messages you get and that seem to be verbal. Because I'm going to teach you how to become still and empty. Those are two words that come to my mind. You may have many other words that are in that same genre of still and empty, 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 empty of identity, empty of personhood, empty of self-concepts, just still and empty and open-minded. And let me show you how to look beyond error from the get-go, from the start, before you make it real. To make the error real and then forgive it is forgiveness to destroy. That's what the Course calls forgiveness to destroy. So when we do that, we set ourselves back. And when we catch ourselves in the temptation, remember the last section of the Course, Choose Once Again, where he says, what is temptation? Well, it's the temptation to be a body instead of spirit. Instead of our holiness, which he says, you, above all else, this is the thing that you want to experience and to know is your holiness, and to look at the world from holiness to holiness, the holy instant. And it will look past sin, guilt, and fear, which is pretty much what the world looks like. I mean, it's just, if we're looking from a non-holy place, it's horrific. It's murderous, treacherous. And it's our commitment to the ego to keep dreaming. So, the what is it for question, I think, is a really important one, because here in our class, our gathering, what our intention is the attainment of the real world. Well, the attainment of the real world is always can be attained if we choose to shift what we're valuing. And as long as we're valuing the world that is a picture of the sin, guilt, and fear in our mind, we're never going to get back to the sin, guilt, and fear in our mind and realize that the world is a hallucination, but so is that a hallucination. There's no sin, no guilt, it's not there. And so we begin to get snippets of the real world. In the real world, there's no fear. When the dream that's designed to threaten us and harm us and hurt us is no longer valued and worshipped, there's no justification for fear. And there are breakthroughs to those moments when there's a deep realization there's nothing to fear. It's all made up. Wouldn't it be nice to stay there all the time? But I mean, what we really want here are experiences of those breakthroughs. And I know every one of you are having those breakthroughs. And if you're not, you will in just a moment. Because it's imminent here in what's been happening among us. It's absolutely imminent that you will see the real world. And that there really is nothing to fear. So I thought I'd start with a few lessons that point out the real world before, so we get a good sense of the goal and what that experience of being in the real world might be like, and say, yeah, I really want that. I really want that. No enemies, nothing to worry about, no fear. All problems are solved. You know, that sense that we do see sometimes, you know, we do sometimes see it in others that are perhaps more advanced than we are, but we're sincerely working on it. And there was a lesson this last week, lesson 98, which I think it's my new favorite lesson because it requires of us that we take a stand. And I don't know how many times he says, you got to take a stand on the right side instead of the insane side. He doesn't say it that way, but you know, you've been walking on the wild side long enough and it hasn't brought you any happiness at all. No certainty, no peace, no lasting, like, oh, I'm certain that that's always there. So, you know, here what we're wanting is to foster experiences that are leading us to the real world and you know, a sustained awareness of what it is to be in the real world, and then recognizing it's a choice. It's a choice to be in the real world. And it does require, again, seeing that this is a dream, it's a hallucination, and to stop letting it feed us, you know, justification for all kinds of righteous indignation about what's going on out there. There's nothing going on out there that isn't going on in your mind. And it's the treasured belief in sin, guilt, and fear. We have to get back to the mind in order to see it and to see that sin, guilt, and fear are not there either. They're made up simply by indulging it and believing in it. And, you know, we need to learn to withdraw belief in it. Yeah, Bruce. You're on mute somehow, Bruce, or at least I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, there we go. How's that?
It's good.
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice the amusing synchronicity. If you mentioning the word hallucination this morning, I've been exchanging emails with friends of my mom who had a stroke a few years ago, and she's been having hallucinations of different sorts. And the best part is that she can laugh about it. I mean, she knows that they're hallucinations, and I think that's kind of a metaphor for all of us. And then I was thinking, well, we're all hallucinating here, and so when she sees little creatures around her bedroom helping her, and imagines things happening on the street that I look out the window and I don't see, and I say, well, how do I know? It's like, who am I to judge what's real, what's not in a dream? And anyway, so I just been enjoying realizing that if I don't take anyone's hallucinations seriously, and they're all mine, that's the curriculum, isn't it? And to gently release our grip on all of them. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah. I just one more thing. I think the next step is also very important. What for? If we just laugh it off, I think not taking it seriously is an important place. Oh, I remember, it's a dream. How can I be harmed or hurt by a dream? Now, if it keeps happening over and over and over again, every day, day in and day out, year after year after year, and we keep getting upset first, and then we go, oh, it's a dream. I think we miss the next step, which is, what's the purpose of this? Why do I keep coming back to it over and over and over again? It must have a purpose. Then I can perhaps do some real, I refer to it as self-inquiry, where we start asking ourselves some hard questions. And because that's not my question, it's Jesus' question. And he says, you need to ask yourself this question. Everything that you want to believe in and make so real, you really need to ask what it's for. What's its purpose? Because anybody have any thoughts they want to share about that? Is that making sense? Oris? You're on mute, Oris.
I would like you to go into that, give an example more, because I don't ask that. And so how do you do that? Thank you.
Okay, sure. Well, as I see it, first of all, it would be skipping a step. Not to go back to the inner mind, the secret dream. Say what, if what I'm seeing externally is coming from me, it's, I'm doing this to myself. Then why? Okay. Why am I doing this to myself? So for me, it might be, well, I want to preserve my self-concept. I've made a self-concept. We've all made a self-concept other than Christ, who is holy. We've made a self-concept in which we are weak, helpless, powerless, vulnerable, and yada, 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 on and on and on. And everybody's got a self-concept that in the broadest sense of the word is a self-concept. I'm a sinner and I'm guilty and I deserve to be punished. Everybody. That's what the world is.
Okay, Lyn, so
yeah.
If this morning I woke up and this happens over and over, and so how can I translate this? There's graffiti painted all over the side of our garage. And I'm immediately thinking, poor me, I'm a victim. This is happening. Who's painting this stuff on my wall? How could I catch him? I'm in this big cycle. And this is in my dream that I have. So if so I should say, what's the purpose of this? I'm looking back to, on some level, I'm wanting to be desecrated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that what
yeah, yeah. And you could go a step further, what for?
Because I want to be punished for, I don't deserve this. I can easily go there.
Mm-hmm. And it's reinforcing your concept of yourself as anything but the Son of God.
Yeah. Yeah. Mainly a victim. Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm unempowered. I can't do anything about it.
I'm a helpless victim.
Yeah.
I'm weak, vulnerable.
And so seeing that, I just have to ask Jesus to look at it with me.
Yeah. Well, and say, I'm willing here. I'm bringing this to your light to join with you because I've decided to follow you, Jesus. Yeah. I'm an apostle of yours. I'm a disciple of yours because you're going to save me from all this insanity because you did it first.
Yeah. And as you're saying this, I'm going, oh, I don't really want to do that. I mean, I'm it's scary. I'm seeing myself go, I guess I really want to continue to be this victim on some level.
And Maurice, that is such good information.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
This was the whole point of lesson 98, where it was take a stand on the right side. Take a stand, take a stand, take a stand. If we don't take a stand for that, we won't even notice when we're doing that. We think it's normal. You know, it's normal for me to be totally outraged by somebody spray painting, you know?
Yeah.
It's all in what I make of it, what my interpretation, the internal interpretation about me. I am anything but the Son of God, and I am going to continue to deny it. I am weak, helpless, vulnerable, incapable, suffering, victimized, sick,
Yeah.
you know, on and on and on. And thank you, Maurice, for sharing that and bringing it up, because that's what we have to look at. And that's what we keep secret. And that self-concept isn't going to get undone until we learn the strength of Christ in us.
That's the rock I keep pushing back up and letting it roll over me again.
Guaranteed a lifetime and many lifetimes of preserving that identity.
So it's the simple act of noticing that, which is the first step, right? And then asking why.
What is it for? What is it for? What am I preserving here?
Yeah, I'm punishing. I want to be a martyr, a victim, and then just taking the step of putting my hand in Jesus, or however I ask.
Exactly.
That's the step away from it. Or
so you learn, and as you learn, we all learn. The strength of Christ is always with us. We're not bodies. There's only one Son of God, and we're all that one Son of God.
Thank you.
That's our, that's our work. But, as long as we keep making the error real first, then, we're not looking with the Holy Spirit. We're not looking with Jesus. Like, we begin our day, we choose the day we want, and then we say, from now on, I won't make any decisions by myself today. I'll make every decision with holiness, with the Holy Spirit, with, Jesus. Take his hand. I'll make all my decisions with him. And we begin to discover there's a whole other world to be seen. It doesn't have anything to do with our hallucination. And the strength of Christ works through you, through me, through every one of us, until, it becomes really simply natural. I mean, we don't go around picking and choosing, I'm going to do this miracle and that miracle. The miracle happens naturally through us when we're right-minded, we're going through our day choosing Jesus. And when we're tempted to fall back into being a body and weak and helpless and vulnerable, what is temptation? The wish to be unfairly treated, the wish to be a victim. And we recognize it before we make it real. So ultimately, the world is no longer going to be useful to us, but not until the sin, guilt, and fear that we're hiding and keeping secret isn't looked at and with help. And we see why we're doing it. When we see why we're doing it, we will take Jesus' hand or we will ask for help, and we will learn to see. Who's doing the seeing is really the question. Who's doing the seeing? If I'm seeing a world of, disaster and pain and suffering and all of that, it's because who's doing the seeing is the ego.
As you were talking about sin, guilt, and fear, I was thinking about growing up in the whole Catholic thing. The brothers and sisters of an order, and certainly Reese would know this better than me, they had 3 little initials after their name, usually, like Sisters of Mercy, brothers of the Benedictine order or whatever. And so I was thinking sin, guilt, and fear, like we've all got SGF after our name. Sons of guilt and fear, sisters of guilt and fear. So I mean, that's kind of the second step. Come back to what Reese was saying. I think the first what for is, yeah, I'm not at peace, but I know whose fault it is the guy that did that, or he or she who did the writing on my garage. So the first step is sort of kind of to get, I'm trying to get back to Tim SGF, this identity of I am this thing of guilt and fear. But to get to that step, I have to look at who I think is guilty and I should be afraid of, meaning the people that are doing whatever to me. So I start with them. At least I find that helpful. Am I willing to see them? Just visualize them drawing on your garage. And then am I willing to see them the way Jesus does? I mean, they're a mess. Obviously, they're a mess. They don't have a life. They need a life. There is much. But to back that up to what the real mess is, the Tim SGF part. And then Nikki had something, Abe did too. Nikki, you got something?
Nikki and Kathy, I see. Nikki?
I was just saying the way you described that reminds me of just weird things happen to me all the time. And I think that they're all based on my guilt and fear. And there's every time a weird thing happens to me, and they're recurring weird things, just with people, with situations, I think about like, what did I do? Like, what am I thinking of that caused this to happen? What am I guilty about in my life? And I have a little list of things that I'm secretly guilty about now that I'm trying to solve. And one of them is, and I'll be quite honest with you, because I'm just here for the first time, but I like this a lot. One of them is drinking. Like, I get in weird situations because I do that, and I'm realizing that Jesus, the Holy Spirit, have been telling me to stop drinking, stop it, and your guilt for that will go away. And then all these weird things will probably stop happening to you in the illusion. And I think it's going to work. I think it's working already. But coming to this class, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Nikki. And you bring up something that I think is important to talk about here right now. The Holy Spirit and Jesus are only concerned with our mind. They're not concerned with behavior at all. And so, because that makes the body real. And they would never say, stop drinking, don't do this, give this up, change that. What they would have you do is, and have any of us do with any behavior that is plaguing us and haunting us, and we feel this has got to put an end to this. So it's the same exact process. The behavior is coming from sin, guilt, and fear in the mind. So we look at the sin, guilt, and fear in the mind with Jesus taking his hand, or with the Holy Spirit. And we literally give the behavior over to them and say, behavior is not my job, and it's not their job. But the removal of sin, guilt, and fear in the mind this is the only place that we can learn it. And so I have had different issues, you know, whether it be eating, smoking pot, drinking, you know, I've done all those things. And I find that nothing is more tenacious than something that I think I'm going to fix or change or get rid of. But every time I've followed this process and learned to look at the dream from their perspective, from the place of love, the behavior either changes without me doing anything, or it continues and is no longer a problem. But if I fight with it as if, you know, I know that I can handle this, you know, damn it, and I'm going to stop doing whatever it is. And so it's always going to be the same process. And anytime any one of us gets involved and starts, you know, muscling our behavior, we're just more the dream. The body is a dream.
Oh my gosh.
But following Jesus and his mighty purpose, which is forgiveness, and only forgiveness. I mean, that's as hard as it gets. We're here to, you know, forgive. But to learn forgiveness, we can't make the sin real and then try to forgive it, because we are reinforcing sin and saying the behavior is real. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was it was Abe, and then was somebody else. And this is great. This is fine. If you have issues you want to bring up and we can look at and talk about, I mean, it really is what ending this is about. Yeah. Kathy, where are you?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Lynn. Going back to the purpose of what is it for? I always loved what Ken has always said, that there's only two purposes for anything that's occurring. One is the egos, or one is the Holy Spirit. And in chapter 17, there's in the section called Setting the Goal, where he asked in paragraph 2, where Jesus asked, what do I want to come of this? What is it for? And setting the goal, we want it for peace, for Holy Spirit, for learning. And Ken has always helped me that whatever is going on in my life in any given moment, I ask Jesus to enter into that and bless it and use it for his purpose to help me, whatever's happening, to help me awaken from the dream with this situation rather than keep me further rooted in it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. Abe, I think you had, Abe.
Yeah, going back to the idea of recognizing that we are in a hallucination, you know, I understand that it's quite helpful to realize that we're in a hallucination when we are experiencing thoughts of sin, guilt, and fear, you know, some kind of a grievance. But I can also drive myself batty with this, you know, every time I take a step, I say, my leg is a hallucination, the sidewalk is a hallucination, I open the fridge, that's a hallucination, and I can drive myself batty with that. And I think you answered the question, is when we get tempted to think that we're a body and we're guilty, right? That's when it's important to recognize that we're a hallucination. Not when I lifting the cup of tea and say, I'm drinking tea. This is a hallucination. You know, that's not really helpful.
Yeah, exactly, Abe. I mean, specifics are useful for a while, meaning specific relationships, but ultimately it generalizes to this whole external world is a hallucination, and we're all colluding in it and reinforcing it with one another by being, you know, whatever it is, you know, righteously indignant about everything that's going on. It's all the same thing. It's just one dream, and it's a dream of sickness, pain, suffering, death, hate, that's the content of the dream. But the content of the dream is coming from our internal belief in sin, guilt, and fear. It's an outward picture of an inward condition. And so nothing's going to change until we get back to the mind and choose a different teacher and walk with that teacher through our day until it becomes an automatic thing. It becomes natural, as we say. Yeah. Holiness is natural. Holiness, to me, is that empty, still place where the mind is open to receive. There's not a lot to do or say. The mind is open to receive. And he said, and that it doesn't judge. It can't judge. It's not possible for it to judge. And so we begin to see how to navigate through the dream in an effortless way. We don't have problems. We turn everything into a problem, but seen as it is, it's not a problem. A happy outcome to all things is sure in the real world, because we're walking with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So a happy outcome to all things is sure. My interpretation is always going to be, that's great. Somebody leaves you and says, I don't want to be with you anymore. Happy outcome to that is sure. It's going to be fine. It's that kind of way of seeing everything. That's the real world. No matter what it is, it's going to work out unless I get in the way and I make a problem out of it. Right? Anybody agree with that? No? Yeah, Myra.
I agree. Yes. And I was waiting for that month. Kathy, you said the setting of the goal, and I had it right in front of me. I had just read it yesterday. And I love that because that ties in exactly what you were saying then, how Jesus is helping us not to make it real. He says there, in any situation in which you are uncertain, the first thing to consider very simply is, what do I want to come of this? What is it for? And in this section, setting the goal, it's before the time. It's really like the rules of decision, which
Yes.
I've been doing that now for 5 years. I love it. And it's also without a clear-cut positive goal set at the outset, the situation just seems to happen. So he's really inviting us to set the goal with him, choosing the right teacher. And he says the value of deciding in advance what you want to happen with Jesus, being happy, a good outcome, like you just said, is simply that you will perceive the situation as a means to make it happen with Jesus. And I just love that. And Kathy, thank you also for bringing that in. And thank you. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Myra. Myra, do you want to give the page so if anyone else would want to check on what you just referred to?
Yes. That's chapter 17, section 6, page 365. And what I was just reading was on page 366.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, I've always loved that part. He makes it clear over and over again. You first look within. You decide who you want to see your day with. You decide who you want to walk with. You decide the kind of day you want. You look within first, and then you look out and you see what you decided to see. So it always puts us in the place of, we are the commander of the enterprise. We're always in command. We're always in command. Even if what we see out there we don't like, we chose it. Not the form of it, but that it gives us a justification to be upset, angry, anything other than the Son of God, anything other than Christ's holiness, we'd be happy with that, as long as we're upset and angry and in turmoil. Yeah. Let me see. Judy had her hand up.
I'm just so glad this is going on this morning. I've just been through and arrived on the other side of a very cautionary tale. And that is that for a period maybe of a couple of weeks, maybe 10 days, I just was hallucinating and was so deeply in the hallucination that I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't practicing, and I don't have very much because I was so overwhelmed with feeling. And I don't have anybody around me personally who has anything to do with the course or with anything spiritual at all. And so I was just making a plea and a reminder to myself that it's perfectly possible to turn your back on practice and not know you're doing it, or know you're doing it subliminally. And for me, it takes the form of righteous indignation. And that's such a good feeling to me when I'm feeling awful. It's such a strong feeling that it really, like the smoke screen, got really hard to see. And that's the parent. That's the purpose, to finally realize, hey, you've lost it, girl. You think you weren't going to lose it again? Wrong. Wrong.
Wrong.
You think you're above all this? Wrong. So,
Thanks, Judy.
just a cautionary tale.
Cautionary tale. How many of you on the screen prefer righteous indignation as one of your favorites? Yeah. Anybody else have one they like to share about, the external?
Osmani has some.
Asmani.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to share that I'm studying today lesson 130. It's impossible to see two worlds. So this class couldn't have come at a better time. And what I wanted to share is the first paragraph of this lesson that says, perception is consistent. What you see reflects your thinking, and your thinking but reflects your choice of what you want to see. Your values are determiners of this. What you value, you must want to see. Believing what you see is really there. So I have to, work a lot on this lesson today and question what is there I value that's keeping me away, from Jesus. Yes. and from really seeing. So thank you very much for today's lesson.
Yes. What lesson was that, Osmani?
130.
130. Okay. So
we have actually we've studied the lesson before, because I've actually,
Yes, you started earlier than we did. Yes. 130. I will accept. No, it isn't. Well, I will accept atonement from myself. It is.
It is impossible to see two worlds.
Yeah, I love those two lessons together.
Yes.
Beyond this world, there is a world I want. It's impossible to see two worlds. So you're always in one or the other. You're either, in the real world, or, you're walking with Jesus toward the real world, or we're in the unreal world and we're dreaming. As you were saying, or someone was saying, I think it's probably helpful when we're really caught up, in what's going on in the news or wherever it is, we could say, oh, I'm hallucinating again. I'm hallucinating again. It might sort of let us know we're insane. We're insane not to be following Jesus and taking his hand, because he's going to, save us from our misery and pain and suffering. Actually, our choice is going to save us. Our decision is what's going to save us.
Can we choose our hallucinations? I think I like the one that Bruce's mom is saying. I mean, they sound pretty good, actually. Cute little cuddly things running all over the place.
Yeah. Well, that may come to all of us, where we're innocent and everything we see is harmless. I mean, that would be, again, the reflection of the real world. In fact, as we were doing chapter 31, last chapter, recognizing spirit, and bottom line here is to recognize holiness, to recognize it in ourselves and to see it in our brother. Then our behavior must be appropriate. Holiness to holiness. How could our behavior with one another not be appropriate? But in that chapter on recognizing spirit, he gives us like 4 or 5 different signs that we're awake. We're awake in the world, we're awake in the dream, and we're moving through the dream, but we're awake. We're seeing the real world. And it's this: the world is harmless in your sight. It's harmless. Not, you see it first as harmful and dangerous and hateful, but you recognize that you're coming from spirit. It's called recognizing spirit. You recognize, oh, I must be coming from spirit because I'm not experiencing danger all around me and threat and harm. That's a signal that we've made a right-minded choice and we're choosing to walk with the Holy Spirit. Another one, you forgive and the world is forgiving to you. It lets you off the hook. All of a sudden, something you would have done and you would be afraid that you would get judged for it. If you're right-minded, somebody lets you off the hook. They may, instead of, always looking to be condemned. Another one, the world you look at and see is seen as stable, fully worthy of your trust. I wrote down a few of the lessons that you might want to jot down. Here's a series of happiness lessons that are reflecting the real world. And of course, we've been in the happiness lessons for the last 4 or 5 days too. It's, God's will for me is perfect happiness. Why wouldn't I want to choose his will for me? I choose happiness for me too. And on the happiness lessons. But here are a few others. They're short ones. Let me see here. Lesson 289. 289. I love this lesson. The past is over. It can touch me not. And then guess what? Unless the past is over, and that means 5 seconds ago. Unless the past is over in my mind, the real world will escape my sight. So the only way we can see the real world is from the holy instant, now. And if we're bringing anything from the past into it as a means of blocking it, it would be a grievance. We're bringing the past to the present, which is impossible. but we are imagining it is possible. For what? What's the purpose? It's always the same. Why am I bringing the past here to the present? What for? It's over. It can touch me not. Unless it's over in my mind, the real world will escape my sight. For I am really looking nowhere. I'm looking with eyes of sin, guilt, and fear with the ego. And I'm going to see a world of sickness, pain, suffering, and death. I'm seeing what's not there. How can I then perceive the world forgiveness offers? See, Jesus is always saying, forgive first, then you'll understand. Don't make the error real, and then try to forgive it after you made it real. How can I perceive the world forgiveness offers? This, the past was made to hide. For this, the world can be looked on only now. It has no past. The real world has no past. Another symptom of being in the real world. I tell you, the real world is sounding better and better every time we take a dive into it and start looking at it. You know, I don't know anything. I don't have to figure anything out. I just need to be still, open-minded, present, and let Jesus show me. And why wouldn't he show me? I mean, I'm his disciple. I'm his apostle. I'm the one that's going to demonstrate his message for him. And so are you.
Lynn Altman had something, and then Dave Dempsey.
All right. Good.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I just had a kind of an aha moment during this. And what I realized was that, and I wrote, I do not want to see that a separate identity cannot bring me true peace and happiness. That is the sort of central issue for me. It's like the real world is wonderful. It sounds fabulous, but I'm still clinging to this notion that I should be able to, I deserve to have a life of my own that's peaceful and happy, God damn it. You know, and it's kind of that that hidden part that for all the loveliness of spirit and, you know, holy instance and all of that, it hasn't been enough to kind of penetrate this real core desire for separation.
Right.
I've never seen it.
Yeah. What I'm hearing there from you, Lynn, is the belief in sacrifice.
That's interesting.
That there's a belief that it's a sacrifice to give up nothing. I mean, but you don't know it's nothing. You don't know it's nothing. So, you know, what I would do is bring that belief in sacrifice to Jesus and say, you know, I want to learn there's no sacrifice in being the one holy Son of God, that there's going to be no loss in it. No loss, nothing, you know, sacrificed at all. See, that's the profound belief that love demands sacrifice. Is chapter 15, he really addresses it in chapter 15. And he calls it, I think it's forgiveness without sacrifice. But that's any time we're fighting with it, there's something we're believing that we're going to have to sacrifice or give up. And you know, it's not your job to learn that there's no sacrifice. I mean, it's your job to learn it, but it's not your job to teach it. It's Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and they will, guaranteed, they will.
I better be careful what I ask for then.
Well, see, because you already have an idea about what that's going to mean,
Yeah.
right? You've already defined the problem and what you think, it's going to mean to you. And you don't know anything. You just have to, okay, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Somebody else had. David.
Yeah, Lynn, this morning, it's funny because I started reading our immersion homework in chapter 15, section 5. And I got to the third sentence and it said, judgment always rests on the past. For the past experience is the basis on which you judge. And I closed the book. That was it right there. I mean, I can't do this by myself because everything is based on my past experience.
Yeah.
So, when the graffiti's on the garage, when the laundry basket's in the laundry room, when the log is in the drainage ditch, that's just the siren that something's gone wrong. And it's got nothing to do with those things. It's coming down to my fear of either loving or being loved. And those are the things I need to take to Jesus, because if ever all my judgments are based on past experience, I've not gotten it right yet. I need another teacher, somebody that can show me something completely different. And then I have to be willing to see that. And I think that not judging those situations, beating myself up because something went wrong, just looking at it and say, aha, it's almost like inviting the ego into the boardroom, let him sit at the table and say, thanks for your input, but not today. We're not going to go that way.
Yep.
And then be willing to be shown something different. And I don't know what that is,
No.
but I certainly know it's not what I think it is, because I've gotten it wrong.
Yep.
My counter's broken. It's gone so high up. So thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, thank you, David. The Holy Spirit needs a happy learner, and we're not a learner as long as we're bringing the past into it and we think we know how things should go. I mean, that's why that empty, and still is so important to learn to move in that holy place. I mean, it is a holy place. And to live and move in that place and start to notice what actually shows up is like situations where we think they're going to be a real problem, and they're not. They're not. The only problem is the separation from God, right? That's the only problem. In order to learn, there are no problems. There are no problems. We turn everything into a problem. The ego turns everything into a problem. And like David is saying, judgment was the original mistake. That I'm the authority, not God. I can judge. Good luck on finding happiness there. Yeah.
Back in the old days when I would go to Roscoe and hear Ken seminars in the early days, we were a much more wild bunch then than certainly we are these days. So age had a lot to do with it. But I mean, I was hanging out with this person that would drink like crazy. I mean, she would bring her old giant half-gallon bottle of scotch to the seminars, which I thought was off the wall, but it didn't keep me from hanging out with her. She was pretty lively. So, and so she would bring it up in the middle of the seminar, and Ken would say, and this is really interesting, and I'm not sure I agree with this, being a recovering person myself, but he would say, if you're going to drink with Jesus. Because I mean, going back to what Dave says, Dave Dempsey, it doesn't look like we're drinking to keep Jesus away. Just like it doesn't look like I'm freaking out about the garage and what's on it to keep Jesus away. But the underlying reason for all that stuff, if I'm using this situation, whether it's addictive behavior or whether it's something I'm upset about that I feel like it's been done to me, then I'm just under the surface. I don't want to be loved, like Dave was saying. I don't want to be loving, and I don't want to be loved. And that's the same equivalent with keeping Jesus out of my awareness in the second, especially in terms of the course. So, like, do it with Jesus. Drink with Jesus. I think Leonard Cohen used to. He drank with his guru. They really liked the scotch. Now, I'm not recommending that, especially whenever we have a problem with behaviorally, you might not want to feed it. You might want to go take care of that first. However, if ultimately, we're getting back to what the real issue is, what's this for? If this is to keep Jesus away, no matter what it is, I might want to consider doing whatever I'm doing with Jesus. Getting the log out of the canal or out of in between the yards with Jesus instead of not with Jesus. Seeing my neighbor the way Jesus sees. Seeing the guy who paints the graffiti on the garage the way Jesus does. Instead of keeping them out of my awareness and then blaming my lack of peace on, oh, I'm drinking, or, oh, I'm seeing this situation as robbing me of my peace, whatever it is. That's where we're trying to get back to. If I'm really doing it to keep Jesus out, and then I go running to these meetings to find them, I mean, it's kind of, at some point we want to fess up to what we're doing here.
Yeah, Kathy.
Yeah, to me, doing whatever with Jesus, eating with Jesus or drinking with Jesus, for me personally, the message is I'm using it instead of for my purpose to keep me rooted further in this dream. Now I've switched the purpose to helping me to awaken from the dream, because everything that we made, Jesus, Holy Spirit can take it and use it for his purpose, which is to help us awaken. And that's what helps me think of it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't see how we can be loving and forgiving and seeing clearly as long as we want to skip the step of joining with Jesus and having our purpose, seeing our purpose, what it's been, and laying it down. Like, this is not what I want anymore. This is what I'm over. So I'm cautious about the idea that I can start by forgiving others. I think I have to join with Jesus and the Holy Spirit first and really become a learner, a happy learner, and to come back to our own natural holiness. Our own natural state is effortless. We don't really need to do anything. We just need to be present in this moment. I was reading last night, sometimes I go to this wonderful little book called The Enlightened Heart. Some of you may know it. It's a translation of many poems, including Rumi poems, but I saw one last night that I hadn't seen before. These are translations that have been done by Stephen Mitchell. You may know him, Byron Katie's partner. But this is a little poem, very short, written in 1160. and it so parallels the Course and what we're talking about here. And Dave Dempsey's story of closing the book and saying, you know, I get it, it's right now, this is it. One instant is eternity. The holy instant. Eternity is now. Consecutive moments of now is eternity. Consecutive moments of now. One instant is eternity. Eternity is now. When you see through this one instant, you see through the one who sees. You see through the one who sees. In the one instant, which is eternal, we see through Holy Spirit, Jesus, the one mind, the Christ mind. And another place in the Course, Jesus says, what you see through that instant is all there is to see. Sounds pretty simple. And here's another one that I love from Rumi that goes right along with Chris's statement about judgment. Where are you? Oh, many of you may know this one. Beautiful. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. So, you know, let's get out beyond wrongdoing and right doing. Another way of saying it is victims and victimizers, and come into this one holy instant that reveals the real world and reveals that there's nothing to fear. There's no danger. And from A Course in Miracles, lesson 290. My present happiness is all I see. Unless I look upon what is not there, my present happiness is all I see. Eyes that begin to open, see at last. And I would have Christ's vision come to me this very day. What I perceive without God's own correction for the sight I made is frightening and painful to behold. Yet I would not allow my mind to be deceived by the belief the dream I made is real an instant longer. This is the day I seek my present happiness and look on nothing else except the thing I seek. with this resolve, I come to you, Father, and I ask your strength to hold me up today while I but seek to do your will. You cannot fail to hear me. What I ask, have you already given me? And I am sure that I will see my happiness today. Thank you, everyone. Take a stand today. Take it over and over and over again, as many times as you need to. You know, we do it, you know, for each other, you know, we share it. It's an awesome thing to be able to do this together. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your good work.
Thank you, Lyn.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Lyn.
Lynn. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Much
Peace and
better.
Nice
love.
to wake up with you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.